In the Riordanverse, almost every character has a specific weapon or magical item that they use in different quests. These are stuff that they're given to by a mentor or they earned it along the way during an adventure. In this video, I thought it would be fun to go through the top 15 most used items in the Riordanverse and tier rank them based on how much I'd like to use them if I was a demigod. So before getting into it, here are the groups I'll be placing these items in. First is the highest tier or definitely useful, to include stuff that I would readily use if I had it. Second would be pretty helpful, or items that I would still consider, but they're not my favorite enough for the highest tier. The okay tier would mean stuff that I'm just okay with. The not really group would mean things that I would not really use, and useless would be stuff that I would never bring in a quest. So with all of that, I'll be giving a spoiler warning for all the Riordanverse series, so you've been warned. And with that, let's get started. First up over here is Riptide, or Percy's pen sword from PJO, Heroes of Olympus, and the Trials of Apollo. I'm placing this one on definitely useful. If you want to know more about Riptide, you can check out a video that I made, which is linked down below. Anyway, I don't think I'm alone when I say that Riptide is pretty much the ultimate weapon. It can transform into a pen to disguise itself, and when needed in a fight, you can easily activate it by just uncapping the pen. Aside from this, it's made out of powerful celestial bronze that can kill monsters and even call power to the ocean, making it perfect for demigods who have water-related powers. Plus, it can come back to your pocket when you lose it, and it's overall a really handy weapon. Like, I would definitely use this on a quest. Next is Sumerbrander, or Jack from Magnus Chase. An automatic place to definitely useful again. In my video of tier ranking Magnus Chase and the Kane Chronicles characters, I placed Jack in the love tier, and that's because he's a very fun character. Not to mention that he also manages to defeat enemies and literally talk. I would actually want Jack as a companion in a mission. Like, it would be fun to go on a quest with him, even if he constantly talks about pop culture references throughout the entire time in the trilogy. Overall though, he's going to this tier. After this is Thalias's AG Shield. I'm placing this in definitely useful again. The AG Shield in both Greek mythology and the PJO books naturally incite fear in a person's enemies, and it would be so helpful in a mission. On its center is actually Medusa's chopped off head from the demigod Perseus, and it has the ability to stone people. Thalia's shield doesn't have the same power though, because she just has a replica version of it, but it's still pretty effective for her. She constantly fights and defends her friends with this shield. It's also very durable as it held its own against monster after monster, and even if it doesn't have the same stoning ability that Medusa used to have in Greek mythology, it's still a good copy enough that the Germani were terrified of it in the Dark Prophecy. Next is the Arrow of Dodona. Honestly, I don't know how Rick manages to do this, but I actually felt emotions for this arrow. Like, it was just a hilarious character to me in the Hidden Oracle, but I had no idea that I would actually get attached to it, especially when it quote-unquote died in the Tower of Nero. Apollo gets this arrow in the Grove of Dodona, and it just annoys him so much because it speaks Shakespearean English and constantly nags at him. Although it was kind of annoying at times, its sacrifice was really meaningful that Apollo even goes to the Grove of Dodona by the Tower of Nero to say thank you for that one arrow. Like, it holds a lot of emotion, and I have to place it in the highest tier. I didn't think I'd ever feel attached to just a single arrow that way, but man, the Arrow of Dodona really was something else. Next is Annabeth's Dragonbone Sword. I'm placing it in okay. I mean, we don't really know that much about the sword, except for the fact that Annabeth got it to replace her dagger because she lost it in Tartarus. I mean, I like the concept of the sword, and it is pretty cool to use, but it's not really that interesting. It can kill monsters like a celestial bronze one, but it's not on par with the rest of the items that I have here. So I think it's an okay. So alright. The next one is Luke's Flying Shoes. I'm placing it in okay again. Though it would be tempting to use it if it wasn't cursed to bring it down to Tartarus, I don't really think I would use it because it seems pretty hard to maneuver. Like, it's a cool concept, but I wouldn't really use it that much. After that is Annabeth's Yankees Cap. I'm placing this in the pretty helpful tier. In the books, Annabeth gets this cap from her mother, the goddess of wisdom and war, Athena. I know that Annabeth's cap used to help her get invisible in the first books of PJO, but by the Heroes of Olympus, it lost its magic because Annabeth got into an argument with their mother. Despite this, I think it's still a cool item to have because of its history and the fact that the magic does come back by the end of the short story of this type of Seraphis. So yeah, I think this is pretty helpful and I'd honestly love to use it. Next is Annabeth's knife. I'm placing it again in pretty helpful. I love Annabeth's knife. It's not just a pretty handy item in a fight, but it's also because of its history. So if you want to know more on that, I also made a video on it, so you can check that out in the description. A lot of people tend to underestimate Annabeth's knife, but it's pretty much the backbone of the PJO books through the Great Prophecy. Long story short, it became the cursed blade in the light of the prophecy that said, "Hero's soul cursed blade shall reap," and it became the key to Kronos' defeat through Percy's choice of giving the knife to Luke. Luke killed himself and ultimately saved the world by defeating Kronos as well. Although Annabeth's knife isn't as flashy or powerful as the other weapons, I'm placing it in this tier because I honestly think it's a cool weapon and because of its major role that it played in the books. Next is Nico's Stygian Iron Sword. I'm placing it in definitely useful. We get introduced to Nico's sword around the Battle of the Labyrinth, and I've always been intrigued by it because of what it's made of. It's called a Stygian Iron Sword, and this tells us that it came from the river Styx, or the ancient river in the underworld where people make vows or promises. What interests me even more about it is the fact that we don't know anything about how it's made or where the heck Nico even got it. Like, the RiordanWiki even says that Nico might have made the sword himself, and this is a possibility because as we can see in The Sun and the Star, Nico may be immune to the powers of the river Styx, and it probably wouldn't have been a hassle to make a sword from it. Aside from this though, we don't know anything else about it except that it glows purple or that Nico used it during quests or battles. To be honest, I wish that we would get to know more about the sword in future Riordanverse content because I need to know more of its history and it's just a cool weapon. It could even channel some of Nico's powers like summoning darkness and supports Nico all throughout the books. Like, something that important should have a story behind it, and I wish Rick would give us one. Next is Jason Grace's Gladius sword from the Heroes of Olympus. This was first seen as a golden coin with the initials IVLIVS that Jason has with him in the Heroes of Olympus. I don't know if it's unpopular to say, but I'm placing it in pretty helpful. Personally, I think it's one of the most underrated weapons of the Riordanverse. Jason used this sword only once in The Lost Hero because it got destroyed by the end of the book, but it proved its worth so much in that one book. It can kill monsters, demigods, gods, or anything supernatural, and it's made out of imperial gold, or the material that could also kill creatures like Manius, something that Riptide or Celestial Bronze weapons can't do. Added to this, it could even transform into a 7-foot javelin in a fight for various types of battles. Like, I think this is a pretty cool weapon and it deserves a bit more love. After this is Catoptris, or Piper's Knife. So if you're interested, I also made a video on Catoptris' origins on my channel, so you can check that out if you want. Anyway, I'm placing this in the okay tier. Personally, I think Catoptris is fairly powerful through its visions and use in a battle, but it's not that striking to me. I honestly think the visions provides more anxiety than comfort to Piper in the Mark of Athena, and I just don't think it helped with that aspect. It only proved to be useful when Piper actually uses it in a knife fight, like when she killed Chione and Medea. Aside from that though, it only seems to scare Piper off whenever it shows something disturbing, and only help them sometimes. So I don't know if it's unpopular to say, but I'm placing it in the okay tier. The next one over here is Carter Kane's Khopesh from the Kane Chronicles. I'm placing it in definitely useful. This is another underrated weapon in the Riordanverse, mainly because the Kane Chronicles is not that talked about in the fandom, but Carter's Khopesh is honestly so cool. It can cast Egyptian spells and block them while using its blade as a sword. Also, when stabbed in the ground, it can create a shield for its user, and it helped Carter multiple times in the trilogy. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I would definitely use this in a quest. After this is Backbiter, or Luke's sword from PJO. I'm placing it in not really. Backbiter is an interesting sword in the books because we don't have that much info on it aside from its material. Backbiter is half celestial bronze and half steel that could kill mortals. This latter aspect of Backbiter is pretty insane because there wasn't really a weapon that could kill mortals or regular humans. It was always reserved for monsters or anything supernatural, and in the Lightning Thief book, it's described as a pretty big deal because demigods shouldn't kill mortals in general. Although this would be pretty cool in a fight, I would hesitate to bring this with me on a mission because it's pretty dangerous and I don't really know if I'd like it with me. Alright, we're almost done here. Next is Diocletian's Scepter. I'm placing it in OK. The demigods Nico D'Angelo and Jason Grace get this scepter in the House of Hades from the god of love, Cupid. This scepter helped Nico D'Angelo raise the dead Roman army in the Battle of Nicomantion, and it proved very helpful in a fight. I think it's a really cool item to bring, but I wouldn't really use it as much, because it's hard to control the dead in general. Like, even Nico D'Angelo himself struggled to make them follow him in that scene, and he's already a son of Hades. I wouldn't want to try using it if I'd mess it up, and overall, I think it's just really hard to use. Alright, last but not the least is Leo's Magical Tool Belt. It's an automatic place to definitely useful. Leo's tool belt is one of the most handy items in these books. As seen in books like The Lost Hero, Leo can literally get almost everything related to machinery or fixing things from it. It's pretty much endless, and when Leo needs heavier or bigger items, he just needs to charge this belt. Also, Leo managed to get food from this belt and cook for Jason and Piper, while the belt was always weightless all throughout. Like, I would definitely want this belt, even if it isn't for an adventure. I'd honestly just use it in everyday life. And that's all the weapons or magical items I'll be ranking in today's video. All this stuff managed to help and bring demigods their different quests, and it was pretty cool to talk about them and see which are my favorites. So, how about you? How would you tier rank these items? Let me know in the comments down below.